Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway.
Welcome back to Paris History Avec Hemingway. I'm back with Claudine, and today we're talking about the Arsenal and the area around the Lower Marais, and I'll let Claudine take it from here.
Yeah, this is kind of one of those little areas not a lot of people know about. And Paris itself, each of the arrondissements are then broken up into 4 quarters, but most people even that live there don't even know what many of them are. Of course, there's like Odeon and some of those that are really famous, but this is a part of the Marais that is down at the edge of the Seine, kind of just right across from the very far end of the Ile Saint-Louis, and it is the Arsenal. And what is there is there's one building there that's really cool, especially if you're an architect buff, is the Pavillon d'Arsenal. It was built in 1879 by Clement for Laurent Louis Bourniche, who made his money in lumber and had himself a very huge painting collection. He decided he needed to have a building created just to hold his entire collection. He was also a musician, so he was quite the Renaissance man, we could call him. When this museum was created, he would die just before he could put his collection inside of it.
Oh, what a waste of time and money.
I know, you put all that work into it, you didn't even get to see the finished product. But the building, what was there used to be part of the Ile Louvière, which was basically, it was part of a little island at this very end, and it was absorbed into basically what we know as the right bank.
Oh, no wonder I never heard of it. I didn't even know it. Yeah,
it's a really cool place. It was up until 1843. It was the part of the monastery of the Celestine, and it was later used for to hold gunpowder during the Revolution. It was also there, and it stretched over to the end of Ile Saint-Louis, and we talked about this when we talked about the island in a past episode, that this was kind of originally where they had a lot of the kings and queens of Paris and France buried. Yeah. But when they also had the Basilique Saint-Denis, some of them were here. So there was the heart of Henry II was here. And so all of those things were saved and moved because nothing remains, of course, of that monastery. In December of 1988, the building opened up to the public. It holds exhibitions around architecture and Paris. So it's really, really cool. If you go in there in the center of it, there is this huge map. And if you've gone to the Musée d'Orsay, in the very back of it, there's that you could walk over like the 3-dimensional building of like the opera and that whole area. Well, this one is like all of Paris.
Wow.
And it's really cool. So it's really fun to go up there and like find your address and stuff. But they do really cool exhibits that's, about Haussmann and what he did to Paris. And so it's always like architecture. It's another cool thing is it's one of the only museums that's open on like May 1st when everything else closes and some of the other holidays. So if you're in Paris on those holidays when everything is closed, most likely they're open. So you could go check it out. But it's really fun.
Yeah, I need to check it out. I've never been there.
Yeah, it's a neat building. It's small. It's not something that's going to take a ton of time. Sometimes it even has like about contemporary architecture. So it's really interesting. But right around the corner from there is a little square. And it's the Square Henri Gallet. It was named for the journalist and politician Henry Gallet, who died in 1922. The park was open in 1925, but the coolest thing about this, and I was so excited the first time I found this, was in 1899 during the construction of the Metro, Line 1. They uncovered what was known as the Liberty Tower of the Bastille,
Wow.
because, as we know, the whole storming of the Bastille, and the Bastille was later torn down. And for many years, people thought that that was it. There was nothing left over. But they found the Tower of the Bastille and they moved it over to this park. So the last time I walked by there, they had really cleaned up the shrubs and the bushes around it, so you could see more of the stones, and it's in like a circular, it's circular shape. But so now you can see a lot more of it, and there is a plaque on there that tells you what it is. There was a little kid playing on it, and I was like, oh, so disrespectful.
Respect that thing.
Yeah, it's to respect the history. But it's really cool to go see it because, you didn't think anything was left of the Bastille. Of course, there's some pieces of it down in like the metro stop. But, you would never really know walking by there unless you got really close and looked at it. And that's kind of like the great thing about Paris. And when you go, don't just hurry and rush off to the next place, because you never know what you're going to uncover.
Yeah, you need to linger, be a lingerer in Paris.
Yeah, definitely linger, a flaneur. Right down from there is the Quai de Célestin, which is named, of course, for the convent and the monastery. It dates back to 1352. And, that's the one that went all the way over to the Ile Saint Louis. And then as you go around right there on the corner, there's one of the most beautiful doors you will see in Paris, and it's called the Hotel Floubet. It was built in 1587 by Raymond d'Albor, and he later gave it to the chancellor of Queen Marie Therese, who tapped Eustache Lesueur to decorate, and Jules Hadouin Mansart to renovate everything. And Mansart is a very famous architect of that period. In 1857, Adrien de Lavalette, Count of Lavalette, with Jules Gros, updated the facade and the inner courtyard, and they added on all of these Italian, Spanish, neo-Baroque styles. But it's the caryatides that are on the front of the door. And the door is kind of this dusty. I mean, it's definitely like it was kind of a deep, maroonish color at one point. It just looks like it's been faded by the sun. And a lot of times, you should definitely go with your camera. A lot of times, if it's a sunny afternoon, the sun hits that door just right through the trees and the leaves, and it's like gorgeous.
Oh, you're inspiring me. I do need to go.
I know, you got to go check it out. But in 1877, it was bought by the Massillon School, which it still is today. It was named after Jean-Baptiste Massillon, who gave a speech at the funeral of Louis XIV. So, you got a lot of, there's the guy we've talked about that, they pay to sit with Louis XIV while he goes to the bathroom, or you're the guy that gives the speech, and then you get a whole huge building.
I like that.
But we're going to head down this street, the Rue de Petit Musique, and it was formerly known as the Rue de Petit Muse, sitting outside of the Philippe Auguste wall. It basically translated at the time to public girl, and was the site of prostitution.
Public girl.
And it was at the time, that was like, if you wanted to go find a prostitute, that is where you went. So long before there was Pigalle or the Bois de Boulogne. I'm going to remember the day. But yeah, the Rue de Lion Saint-Paul was a former menagerie of Charles V and Charles VI, and it was here up until the 14th century. And so there was a huge zoo that was there at one point. At number 11, there's this really amazing door there, but this is also where Madame de Sévigné lived. We talked about her. Of course, she was the famous Lady of the Letters. Her husband was killed in the duel of 1651, which spurred her to start writing these letters that, if you remember, she would send them down to her daughter, and then they got so popular, her daughter would copy them and send them around and they basically documented everything that was happening in 17th century France.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah, I remember that.
I know, I love her. She's a cool one. But you take a left and you go onto the Rue Boutroyer. It's named after a hotel that once stood there. But number 6 is what is another one of those really cool things. So this is kind of like this little area here has all these little vestiges of things that are now just gone. But there is the Hotel Roule. There's a doorway there, a little gate that has nothing to do with what's behind it. It was built by Jean-Louis Raoul, who was an industrialist from Avignon, who moved to Paris in 1810 and purchased a house that had 22 rooms, a courtyard, a fountain with statues. He added a workshop there and even a barn after his death in 1844. So that's not that long ago. Like when you think of 1844, when we're talking about Paris history, that's not very long ago.
No, not at all.
It's post-revolution. But the property was passed to his son-in-law, Simeon Chaumier, who married his daughter, Arsine. After their death, Arsine held on to the property until 1886. It stood until 1975, when it was in such disrepair that it was torn down, but they kept the gate. So the gate and it's not like a gate you think of. It's like, a big stone door. And I think we talked about something just last week, and then also like the vestiges of like the Tuileries. So it's like this big stone entrance there and part of the wall. It was basically, that was what is there. And so the piece, when you go there and look at it, basically the strip of land that this wall and gate is on is still owned by the descendants of the family.
Wow, that's cool.
So tiny strip. It's probably only a few feet deep. And then the building behind it and around it is owned by somebody else. And so if you look at the gate, and it's usually always has a lot of graffiti. I'm going to go put confetti on it. It has a lot of graffiti, but on the right side of the portal is a clock, and it's the clock that was on the original building that they took off and put on the new building that was there. It was created in 1850 by Marais, and was after the destruction in 1975, it was removed and it stayed there. Late last year, I believe it was, that this comes up in the news like once every couple years, because somebody is like trying to do everything they can to save it. The descendants are trying, the city is trying to take it over because they want to tear it down. And then all this public campaign of like save the gate and stuff. So it's really interesting. There was like the last time I went by, there was like a website, like a little plaque with a website on it, but it doesn't go anywhere.
Oh, what? That's weird.
Yeah. So, who knows how long it's been there? Maybe just the website died or something, but I was really excited because the first time I saw it, I was like, what is this? I wanted to know more about it. But it's kind of cool that those little things are always fun to see. But right down the street, just a little ways, at number 17 is where a very famous American was. He died there in March 1971 on the 3rd floor. Do you have an idea?
No idea.
Jim Morrison.
But they say he died in the bar and they took him there. And then
so he, at this point, 1971, he wasn't even that old. And he was like, if you look up pictures of him at that time, he was like bloated and overweight. He did not look good. He was there with his girlfriend, Pam Corson. They at first stayed at the Georges V and then l'Hotel in Saint-Germain, where Oscar Wilde died, of course. And then they rented this apartment from a French model and moved in there. And it was like $600 a month. But he spent a lot of his time in my beloved Odeon in Saint-Germain. There was a bar called the Rock and Roll Circus at 57 Rue de Seine. It is thought that, like you just said, it is thought that that's where he died on the toilet on July 2nd, 1971. But they think that he was actually, the bar didn't want the, notoriety and all of the issues with saying that he died there. So they say they took him back to his apartment and put him in the bathtub.
It makes more sense that they would want the notoriety. Like, why would they not? They'd be making a lot more money right now.
Yeah, well, there's nothing. That bar is gone now. And I walk by it.
They'll be
every
there
day.
If they told everyone he died there.
Yeah. And it's funny because there's nothing there. There's no, there's no plaque. But if he died there, maybe there would be.
Yeah.
But he was really into Pamela was really into heroin and cocaine, and he was doing all sorts of crazy drugs too. But they say that officially he was listed as dying of heart failure. She was a real piece of work, that one too. And I just recently, after forever, I think this movie came out like 20 or 30 years ago, I just recently watched that Doors movie. With Val Kilmer, because I just wanted to see if there was like the part about Paris in it.
Did they show it? I forget.
I don't even remember. I think I was like doing like 15 other things at the same time, but Meg Ryan played Pamela.
Yeah, I love Val Kilmer.
And Val Kilmer. So it was kind of interesting, but he was really young when he died, and of course he's buried at Père Lachaise, and there's a huge gate around it because people kept going in there, and there used to be a bust of his head in there, and somebody stole it, and but some people say that he didn't really die, he's still alive someplace, so we'll never know.
He's dead.
Yeah. Right past that is the Rue Neuve Saint-Pierre. It's the former Saint-Pierre Passage, was created after the Revolution when the St. Paul Church at the end of the street was torn down. The cafe, or the Rue de l'Hôtel Saint Paul, is another street that's there. It's a very short street. And then you end up, as you come out, you're on the Rue Saint Antoine, and you see the Hotel de Sully. This is another one of my very favorite little places to go, and it's also where I buy way too many books. It was built in 1624 by architect Jean Andreau de Sarceau. He was the financier of Mesme Gallet. In 1634, Maximilien du Baton, Duc de Sully, bought it and spent a lot of time there. And he's, of course, Duc de Sully was a good close advisor to Henry IV. But today it holds the office and the bookshop of the National Monuments of France. And so if you're looking for any special books about the monuments of France, or a lot of them are in French, it is like the place to go. I go in there every time and buy too much, way too much, which is now, I'm trying to deal with shipping all of that stuff. It was also here where this is where basically the jousting match and carousel was held on June 30th, 1559, when Henry II was injured by the Count of Montgomery and died on July 10th, 1559, when the little piece of wood from the lance got into his eye and killed him, dying of sepsis. But it's a really cool little place, and there's a little cut through from there that takes you into Place des Vosges.
Secret passageways.
Secret little passage there. At number 21 is the Hotel de Mayenne. On September 10th, 1605, Charles de Lorraine bought the former Hotel de Petit Meuse. In 1613, he had the building updated and enclosed. The facade, it remained in the Lorraine family until 1759. It would later become a school for the Brothers of the Christians. It is still today a school. And right next to that, it's a really gorgeous building. And I always just think, like, do those kids know how lucky they are to go to school in a building like that? Because the schools in the United States are just not like that.
Like prisons.
They're like prisons and like, cinder blocks and just not like that. But at number 17 is a place that I have been dying to get into. And I've been into part of it, but the part I want to get into is still off limits. It is the Protestant Temple of the Marais. It was built in 1632 by the architect Francois Mansart. It was originally known as a church of the convent to St. Mary. From 1632 to 1789. Under Napoleon in 1802, it was changed to the Protestant Temple. But the coolest thing about this is where the Fouquet family vault is. And Fouquet is, of course, the Nicolas Fouquet is the one that had Vaux-le-Vicomte, that, held the huge party for Louis XIV. And then Louis like, where'd you get all this money? Did you steal this from me? And threw him in jail. And so on Patrimoine weekend, which is the third weekend of September every year, that's like my Super Bowl. It's my favorite thing of the whole year. Last year I went because it was open, because it's a very small church, and it's not open like, Saint-Sulpice to just walk into. It's only open when they're doing services. So I went this day, and because it involved, like, you signed up for this tour and you got to go down into the crypt. Well, it doesn't go into the very low crypt. It basically went into this room. They were like, this is where we babysit the kids. And it was like, this is not what
This is lame.
and I tried talking to people and asking, and the guy told me to come back later, and I sent an email, and basically they're like, no, we don't let anybody down there. But I'm dying to see the crypt and basically where they're buried.
It's time to date a security guard.
I know. So, but Nicolas Fouquet, I mean, I just love that whole story. And then that brings you back to Madame de Sévigné, because she was friends with him. So she would write and document the whole trial and everything that happened to him. So that's kind of how we know this whole story of him as well. So it's always all connected. But if you just walk down a little bit farther and look to your left, there is a statue of a gentleman that's very fancy. It is the statue of Pierre Augustin Caron du Beaumarchais. It was from 1732 to 1799. He was born to a watchmaker father. He followed in his footsteps, but he garnered the attention of Louis XV, who asked him to make a very special watch and a ring for Madame de Pompadour. The king loved it so much, he named him the official purveyor to the king. He later became a playwright, writing many famous plays known like The Barber of Seville and The Marriage of Figaro, which is a very famous one. But his private life is really interesting. He was married 3 times, using each of his wife's fortune and her basically stage in society to boost his own place. His first 2 wives died under strange circumstances shortly after they were married.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and then he took the 3rd wife's last name. So her last name was Beaumarchais. And then he went through this whole thing that he was like, they said he plagiarized some stuff and he had to leave for a while, but now there's this fancy statue of him.
Sounds fishy to me.
Yeah, but you always love those kind of stories. It's like the Black Widow. She mates and then she kills. But if you look, you're on the street and you look up, you cannot miss the column that is now in the Place de Bastille. It is in there when you walk there, because we talked about the remnants that were down by the Seine. But if you walk now, they changed it. They redid that whole area that's around the column. And instead of having the outline within the cobblestones of the former Bastille, it is now there's like brass markers all around. So when you're walking and even in the middle of the street, just keep an eye on the cars. You can see it traces the entire former outline of the Bastille. It was built in 1370 as an urban castle with 2 towers. Charles V added 6 more of the towers. It was built to defend the Porte Saint-Antoine. Under Louis XI, it was used as a prison at times and also a weapons warehouse. Cardinal Richelieu transformed it to a prison in 1631. And then, of course, on July 14, 1789, after the Les Invalides was ransacked for weapons, because they kept all the weapons at Les Invalides, but in the Bastille, they kept all the ammunition. So the guards tried to defend it, but the crowd was too big for them. And of course, they stormed the Bastille. You hear these stories and it's always like, especially, in the US and, we know it as Bastille Day, Bastille. And so, it's a storming and they let all the prisoners go. But in fact, it was only 7 prisoners even in there.
That's like a big blow up for nothing.
I know, it's so funny. And so it really wasn't about the prisoners at all. It was going so they could get all this ammunition. And there just happened to be a handful of people there. So it's kind of interesting. On July 15th, they began to tear down the Bastille. And then some of those stones were used and they some of the larger stones, they actually carved them into small replicas of the Bastille. And you can see one of them in the Carnavalet Museum. And it's actually pretty big. But a lot of the stones were then used to build the Pont de la Concorde.
That's crazy that they use the same stones. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's really any of those left because, those bridges are so old and they've been redone so many times that who knows, maybe some of like the interior ones, but, I don't know if, I really wonder how many, but, 1789 isn't that long ago.
I mean, in Paris time, it's not long ago.
It's not long ago, no. But there at the Place de la Bastille, Napoleon wanted to build a large elephant monument. He wanted it built in bronze from all of the Russian cannons that he had captured. A wood and plaster model was created and erected in 1833, but only stood until 1846. The base of that still remains, and it's the base of what is the July column. Victor Hugo included that elephant in Les Miserables. The July column in the center is dedicated to a different revolution, though. It's dedicated to the July Revolution, or the Three Glorious Days that led to the end of Charles X, and is captured by our favorite Eugène Delacroix, which is Liberty Leading the People. Well, you know how I always have to work him into every episode. Louis Philippe decided he wanted a monument erected there dedicated to those that fought and the volunteers, and so that helped to create the July monarchy. Architect Jean-Antoine Elavalny designed the column that was inspired by the Trajan column in Rome. It began in 1835 using that base of the former elephant. Most of the decoration of the column was done by architect Jean-Louis Duc, and was finished in 1840 and unveiled after the 10th anniversary of the Three Glorious Days. At the base, there is one of the Gaelic roosters, a lion, a crest of the city of Paris, and the astronomical symbol of July. It is divided into 3 parts and engraved with gold letters of the victim who died. On the top is the very gorgeous golden Genie of Freedom by Auguste Dumont. You can see a copy of that much closer in the Louvre. But on February 25th, 1848, during another revolution, Louis Philippe walked his throne from the Tuileries to the column where it was buried. He literally carried his throne over there.
What? That sounds heavy.
Yeah. If you see the thrones, there's a throne of Napoleon's in the Louvre. It just basically looks like a chair, but I'm sure it's not lightweight.
Yeah, not lightweight.
And Louis Philippe wasn't exactly in the greatest of shape. But it's a really cool, and recently, and I think they only do it in the spring and summer months, but recently they started that you could book a ticket and go inside and down in the column. You can't go up. At one point, you used to be able to go up to the very top. You can't do that anymore. But at one point, you could go in there and go down on a tour. I tried to do it twice. And the first time I went to the column, and it actually meets at the Hotel de Sully. And then I was too late by the time the guy told me I was in the wrong place. And then the next time I went, they decided to cancel it and didn't tell me. So I'm still trying to get inside.
Keep trying.
Keep trying. Exactly. But it's a really cool area, and go over there and find all these little vestiges. And if you're in Paris, send me a message and I'll take you on a tour there myself.
Yeah, guys, don't miss out on a private tour of Claudine. She's the best in town. And make sure you tune in next week to learn more.
Thank you for listening to Paris History Avec a Hemingway. If you want to find out some more, you could always find me on my Instagram page, Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge, and that's BLEU, as in the French way to spell it. And each day I post a daily history lesson about a person or a place or something in Paris, or it's lots of fun facts. And then also at ClaudineHemingway.com, where you can also sign up for my newsletter there.